Hey, what's up, everybody? I thought that it would be great. I've been hearing this great story in the community about uh, Maxwell Hayes, who's been a member of the audio programmer community, and he has just landed a really great internship with Epic Games. And Epic Games, if you don't know, are the creators of big names like Gears of War and Fortnite. And so Max has just landed an internship. And what I did was I invited Max to come on the channel because I thought that it would be good for us to really discuss a little bit about how that happened, a little bit how he got into development, because this is a common question that I see that's happening in the community where people are asking, well, how do I get the ball rolling? How do I go from typing my first lines of code and typing hello world into working for like a AAA game company like Epic Games? What sort of mentality do I need to have? And what do I actually need to know? So how's it going, Max?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm great. I'm great, staying busy. So we're working on the new audio programmer website. There are a lot of great things that are happening. And now that ADC is done, I've been just trying to spin everything back up, trying to get back into the videos. And this is one of the first ones that's been kind of post ADC. So I'm really super excited.
Awesome. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, great. So, so I think that what we could start off with is just talking a little bit about your story, your development story. Uh, how old are you now? How did you get started in development? When did you what got you interested in development? Can you just take us through that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm 27 right now. In 2011, I started going to Berklee College of Music because at the time, all through high school, I'd been playing guitar. My whole mindset was that I was going to be a touring musician or something like that.
Uh-huh.
I was all about music. And then I had a little bit of a gap between high school and actually getting to go to Berklee,
Mm-hmm.
where I'd kind of shifted away from like instrument mastery and getting more into recording at home and music production.
Mm-hmm.
So when I finally did get to enroll, I did a dual major for 3 semesters: music production, engineering, and electronic production and design. So I was really into like the audio tech and even less and less spending time practicing the instrument and getting more and more into how the software works and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the financial situation that got me in Berklee, I knew was pretty fragile. So I declared the dual major and just loaded up on classes, and thought if I got really good grades, I would get some kind of scholarship, something to keep me there. But then after a few semesters, I couldn't go back. And so that's when I started thinking about, while I was there, I was getting more and more nervous about the music industry and if that was really the fit, what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of thinking, okay, since I'm at this crossroads now where I'm not in the program anymore, what do I really want to do, and should I pivot?
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing around with programming. I thought audio programming would be really cool. I kept going up these trophic layers of, how does this thing work? Well, how does that work? So I thought audio programming, if I could do it, would be the ultimate understanding how things work, which is what at the time I realized really motivated me.
So when you started off developing, did you start off thinking this whole time, okay, I'm starting off with the aim of being an audio developer from kind of the get-go? Or
no, I think at the time I was thinking, I hadn't really realized that was an option yet. So I started thinking maybe I'll just be a software engineer. I'll be a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I could get an associate's at my community college. Like, because I was thinking from the mindset of like, what can I get for free that will potentially set me up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, maybe I could leverage my my grades and my experience at Berklee to get a scholarship or something attainable. So as I was experimenting with programming and doing learning Python at home and doing a couple community college classes, I was Googling around like what degree programs are out there that will blend, software engineering and audio. So I was actually on the phone one day with my high school bandmate, and talking about what I wanted to do next. And I literally just said, screw it. I Googled like audio programmer for video games, bachelor's of science or something like that, and found DigiPen, where I'm at now for one more semester, at the time it was called Bachelor of Science in Engineering and Sound Design. They changed it to Computer Science and Digital Audio. But they had this program, and my buddy's like, "Oh, dude, I'm about to live 10 minutes from there." He just finished his graduate degree and was about to start working there. So he's like, "Oh, I'll rent you a room for cheap. Come live with me and get it worked out." So I was like, "Okay," and sent in the app and started there.
Wow. So DigiPen, that's what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. So was it like is that like a technical college, or is it like kind of is it one of those type of university colleges or programs where you have to take like a philosophy class and do like a well-rounded type of degree, or is it?
Yeah, it's liberal arts.
Okay.
I mean, they definitely do a heavy, but like I just had to. I'm a senior now, so I'm doing all those classes that I procrastinated on. So we do a film class and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's liberal arts. Some of that stuff I was able to transfer from Berkeley, something like the English and writing and stuff. Yeah, it's a 4-year degree program. It's a unique school. It's all centered around video game production.
Okay.
Really.
Oh,
so
wow.
there's a few software engineering degrees. There's graphics programming, which is I think the first degree program they had, which was a BS in real-time interactive simulation.
Man.
And they have a couple of computer engineering and computer science degrees, including the digital audio. It's one of their younger ones. And then they have some rigorous art programs, or maybe an art program and a couple master's programs. But yeah, it's all very centered around these long projects you do, cross-disciplinary projects where you have to make games.
Yeah.
Your first semester you did it. What's that?
Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Your first semester you do it in like the school's proprietary game engine, and then for a couple of years after that you have to do it in custom. You have to write custom game engines.
Amazing.
And now they let you do, when you're junior and senior, they let you use third party and like Epic or Unreal and Unity and stuff like that to show in your portfolio how you can leverage existing tools.
And were a lot of those, I imagine that a lot of those projects must have been collaborative type of efforts where you're working with like other students, or was it more kind of solo work, or was it a combination of both?
Super collaborative. Yeah. You form your own teams. I mean, you can hire people. It's a pretty good, I think the best simulation you'll get of being in the industry, or at least honing the skills you need to work with other people. But yeah, you're on teams of between 5 and 15. Some teams get huge people, and you have graphics programmers, sound designers, artists, and all this stuff, and a producer, and you're putting all this together to make a shippable product at the end of the year or however long your thing is.
Wow, that's really cool. So you were actually working in teams of 5, from 5 to 15 people.
Yeah, I think my biggest team is my current one, which is 8 or 9 people. That's kind of the size I've been on.
Wow. How do they do evaluations in terms, like if you're working with such a big team, how do you get evaluated as an individual? Is it just through your commits, or?
It's most of the grading is through the final product.
Okay.
So you have, they have TCRs, like technical certification requirements, like you would get if you're trying to ship on Xbox or something like that. They would have requirements, for you need to have a splash screen, you need to have confirmation before destructive action, stuff like that. It's going to lose your stuff. But you're mostly graded as a group through the final project, and everything's broken down. So even if but they'll grade like the audio, grade the graphics, they'll grade how the menus are set up. But your contributions influence everybody's grade. Aside from things like attendance, or if there's individual papers or semester recaps and work logs you have to write, those will influence your individual grade a little bit. But for the most part, it's the whole thing sinks or swims.
Crazy. So let's talk a little bit more about the languages and just kind of the progression of how that happened. Did they just throw you directly into C++, or what was kind of the progression of how that happened?
You start out in C. You do a semester of C, and then I want to say it's 2 semesters of C++. Kind of specifically, we're learning about the language. And then the upper level classes are a little bit more, could apply to any language, data structures and algorithms and things like that. And then you do an assembly class freshman year. too,
Wow.
which is cool for the lower level. Really, really simple stuff, but
Hmm.
just to get used to the lower level how things work.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember even when you first joined the group, uh, I was just really amazed by just the level that you were at, just with the language.
Thanks.
And uh, you know, there, because we have over 1,000 people now in the Discord, and I would say that in terms of the active members, people that are active on their daily, there's probably less than 10 people that I would say are really like really really good. I mean, there
Mm,
are a lot more. There are a lot more that are in the group that are working. We have people that work for like Native Instruments and for
yeah.
big companies. I'm saying in terms of the people that are actually really active on a daily basis within the community. I was just really surprised by just your level of the language and the fact that you were still in university and not already just out there professionally developing. Uh,
Oh, thanks.
so yeah, but now that you told me a little bit more about the program, it really makes sense. Uh,
Oh, it's a crucible. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, yeah, it sounds really it sounds really thorough. And so you've done a little bit of Python before you started university. Is that
Yeah.
so? How did you?
Yeah. The day. Sorry.
I was going to say, how did you find it? So coming from that language, which is quite a high level language, and then
Mhm.
jumping into something like C, how did you find that experience? Did you find it quite daunting or difficult at first, or did it feel like a natural progression? Or
Um, it was tricky because I had really gotten married to Python and how that worked and had not. That was all self-taught, um, and had not started to dive into the lower level languages
mm,
yet. Um, so that was I definitely felt like I was playing catch up,
mm,
but the Python helped a lot, and just in terms of context, because I had bumbled my way up through like doing some object oriented stuff in Python, so I
mm,
had a lot of context, but I did not have the academic foundation that I got there.
yeah.
Um, but it was cool. The C was not as bad as the jump to C++. I feel like for me, because C is at least it's a really simple
Uh huh.
toolkit. If
Yeah.
you've been programming, you're like, okay, I get how all this stuff works. But
Mm,
then when you start getting into the design patterns of C++, it's wild. In my
yeah.
sophomore game team, actually, I joined a team with these guys. This is a custom engine, and it was the first time we're allowed to use C++ in our game projects.
Uh huh.
Uh, just with a couple C++ geniuses. So I was like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. But
Wow.
that helped a lot. I mean, I learned a ton outside of classes, having to keep up with these guys and
Yeah.
ask them. I have to interface with some system they wrote. And I have to ask them, like, dude, what is STL? What are you doing there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that helped a lot learning outside of the classroom.
And what was the most difficult thing that you found about jumping into C++? What was the most challenging aspect for you?
Probably just the abstractions, like learning the standard template library
Mm-hmm.
intelligently and understanding what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a bigger toolbox now out of the blue, and you're trying to keep up with uh, all these toys without really knowing, quite not having the maturity yet to really know what complexity is, or what the right thing to use is. So it's just kind of messy. Well, I don't know. I found this first in my Google search, so I'll try to make that work for my solution.
Yeah. So, and going through university, did you find that you were really um, learning most of what you needed to know in the class, or did you find that you needed to really venture out and really do a lot on your own? Did you have like side projects that you were kind of keeping, that you were maintaining and creating while you were doing this thing in university? How was that for you?
Right. Well, for me, for programming, I think I learned a lot of what I need to know in the classroom because I felt like I was playing catch up with
Mm,
programming with C++. But it
mm,
was a combination of that, but having the support of my teammates because we're doing those same classes. And these guys one guy already had an associate's from another school in programming. Like these guys grew up on programming. I grew up on guitar, and I'm trying to switch over.
mm.
Uh, so having that support system was huge to maximizing the impact of the classroom.
Yeah. Do you,
And the side projects, it's mostly the game project really consumes everything.
yeah.
So that is the side project, all the elements of that.
Yeah. I imagine, especially when you're working with a team like that, you want to make sure that you're staying up to the same level as the team and you don't want to let them down, and you want to make sure that you're
Yeah.
trying to maintain that level. So it must be an amazing feeling of synergy, I imagine.
Yeah, it can be stressful, but yeah, it's healthy for sure. It's good to
Yeah.
be.
And so let's see. So we were talking a little bit beforehand just about so with DigiPen, is there a real, do they have like a prestigious type of reputation when it comes to game development, where, as we were saying with you, gaining your internship at Epic Games, was that something where they looked at your resume, saw that you had you were going to DigiPen and said, "Oh yeah, we know that person's going to know what they're doing, or who the hell is DigiPen, or where was that?"
Well, I think in general they have a good reputation, especially in the RTIS program that's been around longer.
Uh-huh.
People know, the big companies know that qualified people come out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for me in particular, and the Epic thing, that was much more of a long networking process.
Okay.
It's not something like, this program is young, and I think people are slowly starting to find out about it. But I mean, the whole community is small, compared to some other aspects of the game industry.
Mm-hmm.
So no, that was a lot more of meeting people over the course of a year, really,
Uh-huh.
and eventually meeting those guys.
And how did that happen? Was that you hit somebody up on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, what's up? I'm an audio developer," or was there a meetup, or how did that actually happen?
The way it first started, the very first thing, there's kind of two first things. One is just going and saying hi to somebody that had come and spoken in one of our lectures for the first time. It's like a whole panel from this company came, and I just decided to go introduce myself to one of the guys, because I knew they had an audio programmer on staff, which was, and they work closely with sound designers, which is one of the things I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time I kind of put myself out there, just going up to him after the lecture and saying, "Hey, I'm Max, and this is what I'm into.
Mm-hmm.
Your company seems unique in this way. Can I email you sometime?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, let's have lunch. Come on down and check our operation."
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first hit of the networking drug, a little bit, like that little feeling of success of like, oh well, these people are cool. I'll just invite you to that.
Mm-hmm.
That, and one of my roommates also ran into a guy from 343 in an elevator. He happened to be wearing a T-shirt.
Uh-huh.
Like, "Oh, do you work there?" And he got this guy's email. He turned out to be an environmental artist, but it passed me on to a sound designer who I talked to for a while. Mm. So those two things were kind of my intro to it.
Uh-huh.
And I just gone for this internship that I didn't get for my summer between junior and senior year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a classic experience of 3-4 hours of whiteboard interviews with a bunch of strangers who had no idea who I was, and I'm trying to present myself as this bulleted list of who I am. Mm. And that experience was what flipped the switch, because I always thought networking was scary and putting myself out there, like a lot of people do. Mm. But that experience, I was like, no, this is scarier than networking. This is definitely more terrifying than just starting to meet people.
Yeah. So before you made a decision to start networking with people from Epic and just other audio developers in general, was that networking aspect something that you were apprehensive about, or that you were, or that you felt like, okay, well, I could just go into a game? What did you actually kind of gain from or learn from that experience of just going into a company fresh? They don't know who you are. You're doing a whiteboard interview for a lot of people that don't know you and they're not familiar with you. What happened there? Did that change your mindset or change your approach?
Yeah, it changed my approach, especially with my music background, my music production background, and how I want that to be a part of who I am as a product. When I feel like when you go in cold, you don't get to control the conversation nearly as much, or at least I wasn't good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you don't actually get seen for your entire who you are, right, and what you can offer potentially,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which might make sense because you're not exactly what the company needs. But so you're leaving cards on the table, right? If they're just steering what they're finding out about you,
Yeah.
and they're just looking at 20%, they're only comparing 20% of each candidate or 80% of each candidate or whatever. You don't
Mm-hmm.
actually know what the potential of the relationship would be.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, that was a big part of it.
Hmm. Really interesting. And so, and would you describe yourself generally as a person that networks, that goes out there and really tries to network, or is that something that was that interview process something that caused you to change your outlook on that, or have you always kind of been a natural networking type of person?
No, not natural talking about myself.
Mm.
I'm outgoing once I know people,
Mm-hmm.
but doing things cold was very scary. And yeah, that experience, that interview experience, definitely put the cold interview as a more scary endeavor than just starting to let people in the area know you exist,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
the space. So that fear of, oh, I'm gonna graduate and I'm gonna throw my name in a bunch of hats and I'm gonna do this for a while and have
Mm-hmm.
no income or something like that. That prospect became much scarier than just saying hi to people.
Yeah.
That's when it kind of clicked. The reality of that situation clicked for me.
Yeah. And so going back to when you actually linked up with the audio programmer from Epic
Mm-hmm.
at university, did you, from the time that you met the person, when did you? Because I think, because for me, one aspect, one thing that I can say for me is that networking is a very strong aspect of what has caused me to be able to make some of the moves and career choices that I have so far.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that I've never really heard it even discussed, really, when it comes to programming and development and just getting a job in the industry and
Right.
these things. So I think it's quite important maybe that we kind of key in on this a little bit more and just discuss a little bit more in terms of um, networking, what it is, what it isn't, uh, uh, and just kind of general approaches or any sort of general advice that you'd have to give regarding things to do or things not to do. Uh,
Oh yeah.
so going back to when you actually met this person, did you just, if you met him on a Friday, did you email him on Monday and say, hey, about that lunch,
Mm-hmm.
when can we link up, or how did you approach that?
Well, when I met him, it was when the conference that I helped with, the AVAR conference in
Mm-hmm.
August. It was as part of the organizing committee. I got to go to their networking dinner one of the nights of the conference,
Okay.
and so that's when I met him. And that night was a lot of fun because it felt like a culmination of all the networking I had been doing the year since that internship
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't get. So he had 3 or 4 people separately introduced me to him. Oh, do
Mm-hmm.
you know this guy? These people knew what I was up to when I was writing.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was writing a custom audio engine for Unreal, um, and so that was easy compared to doing all the cold call stuff. That was just fun at that point because I felt like I had this support system that I had developed, and I didn't have to introduce myself cold.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I think I emailed them probably when the conference was over, at the end of the week latest,
Mm-hmm.
um, with questions because you can see all of Unreal's code base.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to wrap my head. He told me, hey, check this stuff out, the new stuff we're doing. So I started poking around in there and tried to email him with a couple questions, both about that and stuff we had talked about
Mm-hmm.
at dinner that night. So it wasn't just the first email in that case after a face to face where they make a recommendation, check this stuff out. you show that I did,
Mm-hmm.
that I'd put time into it, and I'd already, um, it wasn't an email. I don't want to email them and say, hey, it was great to meet you. That's all I have to say. I will look at your stuff sometime. You already want to, I have these questions now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Try to keep everything I can on my end to keep the conversation going.
Yeah,
Yeah, keep it cultivated.
that's really cool. And what would you say are some misconceptions uh, in terms of mistakes that or missteps that you've seen maybe colleagues make or that you've experienced on your side that when it comes to networking and when it comes to trying to get your foot into the industry, have you seen anything like that? And if so, what sort of experiences what sort of advice would you give to somebody that would be looking to get into the industry?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One big one, which was the path I was on, was um, this misconception that I have to wait until a certain point to get started making connections. Like I'm not ready yet to come out of the oven kind of mindset,
Mm.
um, which can be dangerous because you're not going to get to 10 years of industry experience level of understanding while you're in college and then be ready to present yourself to the world,
Mm-hmm.
which is scary. And I mean, if you internalize that the job search starts when you graduate, you're inherently signing up to be unemployed for some stretch of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is scary to me too. A lot of this stuff is fear based for me. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to put future me through that.
Yeah.
So that, and I think kind of ties into the other big misconception I see where I was talking to a friend of mine about this actually. This fear that like you're going to say something wrong, like you get someone's attention, someone replies to an email, or you get a coffee date with somebody, and you're going to show that you don't know everything,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I mean, it's implied that you don't know everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think, and there's a couple ways to combat that. But the biggest thing is people don't internalize what their actual role is in the ecosystem for
Mm-hmm.
entry level positions, right? People put way too much pressure on that they have to come in once they have someone's attention. They have to be 100% rock star. They can't say anything, um, you know, that shows they're amateur or something like that, which is just not the case. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my approach. At no point in my networking do I ever try to assert myself as a rock star or something, or because you just might end up looking like a tool. I mean, I
Yeah.
think you can approach everything with humility, and everything's a question and everything's a curiosity, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And you can ask people, oh, why do you guys do things this way? This is what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious if there's something I don't know, and you're either right, and you have impressed them without um, putting your pride up for stakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're wrong and you're about to learn something new, and you show that you're engaged to what the real problems are, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You're asking smart questions, and you turn around and show that you can learn quickly, right? Or you throw out an analogy once it's explained to you, like to show that, oh, I understand what you just showed me, and you just showed that you're a good, um, very coachable, right? And you can digest new information quickly because you've developed context on your own. You've already put in hours, so it's not risky to, I don't know, to show your hand, to show what you actually know. I think with
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
approach, I think that's super important.
Yeah, I think you made a couple great points that I've seen just in my limited experience. I say limited. I'm it's crazy, but I've only graduated earlier this year myself with my undergraduate. But I've had a couple industry experiences, and you keyed in on a couple great points. One great point was about curiosity and the ability to adapt and the ability to learn quickly. Because I think that one thing that I've seen from other developers in the community is this tendency to really try to get very technical and that they're going to this perception that they're going to win a job based on strictly on their technical ability. Of course, the technical ability is a is an important aspect of the job. You got to be able to do the job, of course, and you got to know the language. But I would say that just as important is this this question of, can they see themselves working alongside of you? Can they, you know, can they picture themselves having a beer with you? Like you don't have to be. I'm not saying necessarily that you have to be like an ass kisser, basically, um, but what I'm saying is that people, it is very human nature that people want to work with people that they can get along with,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not just going to hire you just because you're a killer developer, and that your data structures and they know and your algorithms, uh, and that and like you said, the curiosity part, the admission that you don't know everything, but the curiosity to say, okay, I don't know about that. What is that? Can you tell me about that? Then the ability to kind of pick that up and turn it around and to use it, I think is like a really important aspect that I think a lot of people really miss out on.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that's really interesting. So okay, so you were asking them questions, so you were asking this person questions, and I think that actually brings me up to another great point that I think I've seen as well in the community, which is simplicity. Simplicity of questions, simplicity and curiosity, which is that especially when you're trying to develop a relationship with somebody, it's important to keep things quite short, quite concise, quite just what is this? Not a here's my 300 line code base, but it doesn't work. Can you help me? Can you help me?
It's broken.
Awesome. So I think that it's quite important to keep things contained. There was a great book by a guy that used to work for Apple. I can't remember what his name is. He was like an evangelist for Apple. He's really well known in the industry, but his name's slipping my mind at the moment. But he said he had a rule in this book that I read that said emails, try to keep them to 6 sentences or less, 6 sentences max, because anything over that, unless it's something that is really needs to be gone into, it's just too much, especially for people that are really busy, that are, because when you're emailing software engineers at big game companies, they've got a lot of stuff on their plate, and you just got a picture. They're opening up the email and they have maybe 30 seconds to look at what you
have like one sip of coffee amount of time before they
one sip of coffee rule. That'll be the new one. The one sip of coffee rule.
Till their hand gets back on the mouse.
And so it's got to be, especially when you're trying to develop a relationship like that, it's got to be very quick, very simple, no drama, positive contact, like you said, repeated contact as well.
Somebody was nice enough to fix that element of me. I did that sound designer I told you that I got from my roommate getting a guy's email in the elevator. I sent him a long email when I got in contact, and I thought I was asking all these questions about the industry, and it was a huge long thing, and I thought I was showing depth of thought. And he was nice enough to still reply to me and say, let's just do this over the phone sometime. And then he passed along some contact information for some other people. And when he did that, he said, and don't send them a long email like you did for me. Like, you were really nice on the phone, but don't do that anymore.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic advice. And it's really cool. That's really cool of him that he actually hit you back and he actually passed on that advice and helped you out. That
was huge.
Super cool. I have people that really email me or contact me on a daily basis that say to me, I'm building a sampler. Can you show me how, or something like that? And it's like I have really good intentions, but at the same time, I just don't have time, you know?
Yeah. And
And
in your case, you have resources that you've put out there. So
yeah,
how do you feel when someone does, asks you for information you've already spent the time to present to
yeah.
the world?
What's awesome is that if it's something that I've already done, I can just point them towards the video and say, "Hey, watch this."
Yeah.
but but it's really that key thing of uh, when you're trying, especially when you're trying to extract information or trying to get a favor from somebody. Uh, it's very important to keep it super simple and to keep it really uh, and to really just try to keep everything on the positive. Uh,
Yeah.
or else it just because when you become burdened to somebody, then they just want to switch off to you.
Yeah.
Humans avoid pain, things that are painful, mentally painful or physically painful. Uh,
Yeah.
so don't bring, be an asset to that person. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Provide value.
I could,
There's a
I could probably talk for a couple hours just about networking philosophies, approaches.
Definitely. There's
Um,
a blog I like a lot. Adam T. Croft,
mhm.
his blog. I think it's adamtcroft.com. Adam Croft will get you another
Yeah,
person.
Adam. I know Adam actually.
Yeah.
Is a great guy. I don't know him well, but he's like a guru. He's a guru
Hmm.
in the game audio industry, isn't he? Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially with networking, like it's such a good resource for um, people that are trying to rise above their station. Like that's kind of the theme. And it's great to get pumped. It's great to internalize that, like what I was talking about, like where you fit into the ecosystem.
hmm hmm
That's huge. You kind of give yourself permission to reach out to these people. Like you're an important part of the ecosystem. People, the entry level people are needed because they're the next non-entry level people.
yeah, yeah.
People get this fear like I'm trying to exist where I shouldn't. But I found his blog because he was one of the guys I was going to have coffee with at 343, and so
Mhm.
you're doing your online stalking to the people you're about to
Yeah,
hang out with. And I was like, oh, dude, this whole instruction manual on how to talk to this person, he has written it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
great.
Adam is awesome. I get emails. I think I get emails from him on a like daily basis or every other day.
Yeah, I think it does 3 times a week or something.
he's just he is just on it. He is just on it. We talked about a collaboration. I really need to try to make that happen or try to take that to the
That'd be
next
sweet. Yeah,
level. um,
yeah, he's killer.
yeah, he's a legend, man. And he works on Halo, doesn't he? Does he? He's
He
worked.
was at 343. Now he's at Bobcat.
Yeah.
I'm not
So
sure.
so he's a total legend in game
Yeah,
audio. Uh,
yeah, and great for entry level advice,
yeah,
especially. Yeah.
yeah. Shout out to Adam. Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how that networking and how that kind of translated into an internship for you. So you've had a couple conversations. So you've had a couple conversations with him. How did that kind of progress into the next level of the relationship for you?
Um, well, I think they are trying to set up. They've opened up a lot of internships across the board, so I
Mm,
think the timing just kind of played out where our conversations were going well back and forth, and yeah, I was learning a lot, and I'm learning a lot from looking through
mm,
Unreal Engine. And then another guy that works there does guest lectures at our school sometimes for our digital audio classes.
mhm, mhm.
So I was always trying to make sure I capitalize on those.
Yeah.
Um, and and eventually he reached out and said, this internship opportunity might get approved, and
Mhm.
you should apply if it does go through.
That's really
Um, and it worked out.
that's really cool. And can you talk a little bit about the interview itself? I don't know how much you can say or not say. Was it?
I don't think much. Yeah, I don't want to really
Yeah.
go into what their
Um,
hiring process is, but I think the biggest element was um, when I met him, capitalizing on what he suggested I
mhm.
do and what to take a look at, and making that a high priority.
Yeah.
And those conversations back and forth, I think, is a huge element. And I think that's universal.
Yeah.
anytime you get that kind of opportunity or visibility, it doesn't take a backseat to anything, right? Especially if you're a student, this is what the whole thing is about. You might have a paper due, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's about getting a job, right? Yeah.
Would you say that from your perspective, that okay, let's say that we're talking to a C++ developer that's early in their progression. Sorry about my dog, by the way. She always does this in the videos.
No problem.
Uh, they're early in their progression or early in their start with the language. Where do you feel that they should really focus on the core stuff, data structures, algorithms, the language itself, the STL, or do you think that do you feel that they should really try to, I mean, this is a tricky question, you gotta kind of know it all, I guess, but
Right.
where do you, if you were starting off kind of, if you were to go back in time to when you first started the language and speak to yourself back then when you first started, where would you say, hey, here's where you need to focus if you want to start doing game audio, or if you want to do audio, because there's so many
Right.
things, isn't there? There's the DSP aspect, the
Right.
coding
And
aspect.
it is hard. You do kind of have to deal with it. I think, um, and this is right. I don't have the wisdom to really say that this is 100% accurate, but for me, I think project based is a great learning tool as long as if you learn to scope projects so that you can tackle them. You know, you don't go off and say I'm going to do this whole new system where 98% of it is stuff I've never touched before. It's incremental, and I think doing things through projects is huge because you start to get that context is really important, like where the hiccups actually are. And yeah, doing DSP math and focusing on the language is also super important. Um, Once you get the core competency of the language and enough to like make an app and make Hello World or whatever, and get started with Juice if you're already comfortable with object oriented stuff. You scope projects so that you can definitely tackle them, and there's maybe one or two new things in it, and you learn a lot that way. And then your free time, your passive, make your passive reading and stuff that you're doing when you're off the clock about new language features or about new DSP things, and just keep learning things far ahead that you maybe don't have the know how to implement yet. And that's the box you're going to pull from when you're like, okay, I want to do a project and I want to learn a new thing that I've kind of heard about but don't really understand yet. That's your inlet, that passive reading and that passive digestion material. I think is great because then you have this core, I've done it section of stuff and from your past projects, the I understand it section, and I know it exists. And having that kind of spectrum, that distribution of knowledge, I think is really helpful conversationally, because you can put things in those three categories when you're talking to people. But I think, yeah, if you're trying to get up and running quickly, a really good strategy is to make your off the clock stuff about digesting new material that still relates to your field, or watching GDC talks or stuff like that. Just start learning the words and things.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful.
Yeah, I found there are 2 points off of that. One was that you were talking about kind of the base, like projects and planning. So what I gathered from you out of that was that there's a lot to be said for for creating a project that's real, that's just like a real project, and that it's something that's simple, something that's attainable, but is something that is real, and that through creating that real world thing, that you inherently run into kind of things that you don't know about, that you need to know about in order to get to the next phase of your project. Was I hearing that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the university that I studied at, Goldsmiths, they kind of take that approach, which is that they teach you the basics, and then they really encourage you just to get in there and start creating, because they know that you're going to have this big vision for this thing that you're going to want to create. And as you kind of move along, you say, oh, pointers, I don't know what those are. I don't know what those are about.
Yeah.
Oh man, I need to know about those because I need this thing for the next to get to the next
Mhm.
level. Um, and then the other point was, I forgot what the other point was.
Yeah. And if you're in school specifically and you're not, even the smaller homework assignments,
Yeah.
um, I think, I like to spend extra time on them when if it's not a heavy semester, and also use those as a chance to incorporate one new thing that I know exists, but I don't know exactly. Maybe my I have a C++ assignment that doesn't require using make files or something like that, like automating tests for my own homework assignment,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
or learning the debugger or something that you just allocate an extra 2 hours for a homework assignment so that you can teach yourself something in the same process and feel
Yeah.
good about it. Yeah.
Would you say that that stems from because learning how to play an instrument, you have a certain type of practice regimen that you have to do in order to be adept at it. Would you say that it stems from that? Because I know for me it does.
Oh, maybe. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, uh, because I know for me one thing that I do because I come from a DJing background, from like a DJ scratching background, and that uh, when I was first starting, it was really just about repeated motions, and then just trying to do those faster and faster, and then every time I would mess up, it would just be starting again, and then just really trying to repeat, and it's that repetition that really taught me. And I find that I learned the best way through code as well. Like for
Mm.
example, I'm doing a data structures and algorithms course on Pluralsight at the moment, where they're teaching you how to create like a safe array, a safe
Yeah.
array data structure, and running into all these different things that I'd never that maybe Juice protected me from, uh, and learning stuff like operator overloading and
Mm.
keywords like explicit and these things. Because when you're creating a plugin, that's a lot different from when you're creating like a data structure or creating a library type of
Yeah. You're making the
library.
tools.
Yeah, when you're creating
Yeah.
tools. So there are a lot of things that I was running into that I was like, what is this? I've never even experienced this before. But what I would do is I have this kind of way of working that I do where what I'll do is the first time I'll just go through the lecture or through the code, and I'll just copy directly what is uh, in the tutorial. And then what I'll do is I'll come back the next day. I'll basically open up a new Xcode project and I'll say, okay, safe array up to the point where I've gotten so far. Okay, what do I need to do? And then I'll just actually, like on a piece of paper, I'll just write down, okay, well, we need to have this. We need to have something that checks if the array is out of bounds. And what's going to happen there is going to throw an exception. And okay, and then as I'm filling it in, I'm just making comments on the side. Okay, the reason I'm doing this, the reason that I'm using explicit is so that there's not an implicit conversion. The reason that I'm doing this, and then that's what I find is the best way for me to learn.
Yeah.
Just and then after that, it kind of starts sticking a little bit better, so that when
Right.
I'm actually writing in the real world, that I'm like, okay, that needs to be explicit, or that needs to be, I need an operator overload for this in order to do
Definitely.
this thing. Um, yeah, cool. So let's see, what else? What else can we talk about? So now you've got this. So now you've got this internship.
Mhm.
How long is the internship for? Is it like a permanent internship or is it
No,
until?
it starts end of January,
Uh huh.
and I'll be doing halftime during my last semester here at DigiPen,
Hmm.
and then the official like summer internship will start. So I think I'll go through end of August. I'm not
Okay.
entirely sure, but yeah, it's
Nice.
kind of a semester and a summer, which I love.
Yeah. Nice. And what are your plans after that? What do you see for the future for yourself?
Well, I mean, I think I'd be happy to stay there if they'd have me, just
Hmm.
because it's a small team working on a big audio engine. It's just I that's a lot when you're coming out of school. That is like the best next thing, right? To really get your hands on a
Yeah.
lot of stuff and
Yeah.
work closely with these people.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is like my grad school program, right?
Yeah.
So that's my next learning phase,
Yeah.
real life context. So I don't know. I'm pretty open because every time I start a new thing like this, I know I've done that enough times, started enough new schools or whatever to know that you don't really know until you get inundated with context. Uh,
Hmm.
so I'm excited to get inundated with that context and kind of decide what I'm gonna be, I guess, moving forward.
Nice. Nice. Um, Great. Well, I think that's a great place for us to end things. Is there anything else that you'd like to pass on, or any other advice that you'd like to give to aspiring developers?
Um, just a thing you touched on with your learning process. Um, is just yeah, I think whatever system works for you, the most important thing that you solve with that is don't try to learn too much at once.
Hmm.
I think people do that; they bite off way too much at the same time and become um, unmotivated or
Hmm.
frustrated. So
Yeah.
yeah, that incremental digestion of new material,
Mm-hmm.
and just keep reminding yourself that it doesn't take that long. Just do whatever is going to make you not quit is the most effective thing. That's priority one.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's like Tim Ferriss has a thing in the 4 Hour Chef on um, the half life or whatever you want to, or how often you have to revisit material to really internalize it. Um, that I think is very helpful because I remember I would pick up juice like for 2 hours on a vacation or something and then not touch it again. Always be starting from square one. And so after seeing, and I wasn't really ready to use it in a project.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what his layout is, but it makes a lot of sense when you see it. It's like revisit it in 10 hours and then in a week and then in a month. Like the more times you do that, the less you have to remind yourself how it works to have
Hmm.
it really be internalized.
Yeah. The repetition.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for all your time, Max. And
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to see uh, where this takes you. And we'll have to get you back on. We'll have to get you on back soon for to showcase your project. That there was a project that went kind of people started going crazy over.
That's right.
That was
Circular harmonic thing.
what was it again? I'm trying to remember. I just remember that it had this amazing visualization on it.
Yeah, it was a thing that basically drew spherical harmonic basis functions,
That's
which
right.
are used for ambisonic encoding.
Yeah.
So it's just like a slider for each basis function. You could add them together, and it's just a cool visual because you see it come up in all these different areas. Like you can get a lot of microphone pickup patterns that way. You can basically see what mid side is actually doing
Yeah.
in that way. But yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. We'll have to get you back on the channel showcasing that. I'm sure it's going to
Okay,
blow people away.
I'd love to.
Great. Well, thanks. Well, thanks a lot, Max. And we'll see you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Take care.